What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the first ever episode of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Malamud. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're going to dive into all of the latest news coming out of the New York sports world. But before we get started, just a little bit about myself. I'm 22 years old, a lifelong New York sports fan. My favorite teams are the Yankees, Jets, Islanders, Knicks, and Manchester City. I was a broadcasting major in college at Oswego, and I'm excited to talk about my favorite sports 3 days a week. And let's get started with one of those teams, the New York Jets, as on Thursday last week, the New York Jets defeated their rival New England Patriots by a final score of 24-3, as the Jets with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, and it was really a just dominant performance throughout from the New York Jets from start to finish. Jets led early in the game with a nice touchdown from Aaron Rodgers, and then from there on in, it was all Jets as Aaron Rodgers finished with a stat line 27 of 35, 281, 2 touchdowns, no picks, just 2 sacks on the day, and he really didn't need to rely on his receivers too much. He relied on the run game as well. Braylon Allen, as well as Breece Hall. Braylon Allen with the big game for the Jets in this one, was the leading rusher in the end. 11 carries, 55 yards, no touchdowns. Breece Hall got a touchdown on 16 carries, 54 yards. Couple plays out of the backfield as well. 3 catches for Braylon Allen, as well as 4 catches from Breece Hall. For the Jets in this one, I mean, you rely on Aaron Rodgers coming off that torn Achilles. And I mean, he looked great in this one for the Jets. Obviously mentioned the passing, but also the rushing ability. 3 carries, 18 yards for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers to get out of the pocket and really find space and create first downs. But that's exactly what he did. And obviously a huge performance from Rodgers. Finds his couple of receivers in Allen Lazard, as well as Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, 5 receptions, 33 yards, and a touchdown, 9 targets. So still has some area of improvement for him and Rodgers together as a pairing. But you definitely, as a Jets fan, like what you see so far this season. The rushing attack looks good. The passing of Aaron Rodgers looks good. Also relied on his tight end in this one a lot. Ty Conklin, 5 receptions, 93 yards on 6 targets. So if you're the Jets, you look at this game and you say, well, Aaron Rodgers looks like he's back to normal and is really fitting in well with this offense. The play calls are strong. The players are strong in this offense. Obviously, then you look at the defensive side, and for the Jets, they dominated this game, like I said, holding New England to just 3 points, but the stats really stand out. Obviously, you look at New England's star player, Ramondre Stevenson, the running back out of the backfield. And in this one, if you said that Ramondre Stevenson would have 6 carries for 23 yards throughout the entire game, I mean, you'd say that's a phenomenal day for the New York Jets defense. Of course, losing Jermaine Johnson this past week due to injury. He's out for the season. Will McDonald has stepped in and really hasn't lost a step from what Jermaine Johnson was able to do. CJ Mosley got banged up, but looks to be okay for the immediate future. And if you're the Jets, you look at guys like Quincy Williams as well, Sauce Gardner out wide. I mean, everywhere on this Jets defense, they looked really, really strong, holding New England, like I said, to those 3 points and very few yards. You look at Jacoby Brissett as well, 98 passing yards throughout the day, 12 for 18, no touchdowns, no picks, but 5 sacks from the Jets. They were able to put pressure on Brissett and kind of make New England's offensive line look silly in this one. So a big confidence win for the Jets as they move to 2-1, 2 straight after that week 1 loss in San Francisco. And the Jets look like they're going to be rolling for the next couple of weeks. A bit of an easier schedule. We'll get into that later in the week. But if you're the Jets and the Jets fans, you got to be very, very happy with how Aaron Rodgers has turned out. so far this season through 3 weeks. And the future is very bright for this New York Jets roster as long as everyone stays healthy. So they win it 24-3 over their rival New England Patriots. And we're going to move over to the other side of MetLife as the New York Giants were also in action on Sunday, and they grabbed their first win of the season, a 21-15 victory over the Cleveland Browns. Giants moved to 1-2. Browns also moved to 1-2, but the Giants in this one, I mean, they took a 21-7 halftime lead, and that first half was just a statement from this Giants team that they're just not going to lay down. The defense was very, very strong against Deshaun Watson yesterday. Obviously, with Watson's line, 21 of 37, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, but 8 sacks from this Giants defense. And the Giants front really stepped up, put pressure on Watson, was able to get him out of his rhythm. And in the end, Cleveland only with 15 points. For the Giants on offense, it was a bit of a different story from what we've seen in weeks past, as Daniel Jones looked pretty darn good yesterday. 24 of 34, 236, as well as 2 touchdowns. Also had 8 carries for 20 yards, was able to get out of the pocket, get in space. And I mean, 24 of 34 stands out because, I mean, the expectations coming into this year were, for Giants fans, it could be the worst. And they could be looking at a top 3 pick. It could be miserable. But Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll, this offense and the defense as well said, no, we're not going to lay down that easy. And yes, there's a couple losses to start the season, but they looked really rock solid yesterday, especially Daniel Jones with all the pressure on him as the Giants quarterback right now. And the Giants really deciding if he is truly their franchise or should they go a different avenue. He looked great yesterday, and he really trusted his top weapons, and I think that really stands out for the Giants. Malik Neighbors, 8 receptions, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns on 12 targets, really peppering Neighbors with targets against a Browns secondary that a lot of people had at really the top of the league. And the Giants offense kind of made them look a bit silly with Neighbors, as well as Wan'Dale Robinson, 7 receptions, 61 yards, no touchdowns on 8 targets. I mean, if Daniel Jones can really trust those top 2 guys, Neighbors as well as Robinson, the Giants are in real good shape for future weeks. They also had Devin Singletary in the run game, 16 carries, 65 yards, had that very long 43-yard run. So it made the stats look a lot better than the day actually was. But that's credit to the Cleveland defense, a very strong front there in Cleveland. In the secondary, though, Cleveland needs a bit of help after this past game with Neighbors and Robinson combining for 15 receptions. Cleveland secondary kind of struggled to contain those guys. But I feel like in future weeks, Daniel Jones continue to pepper Neighbors as well as Robinson with targets, and the Giants could be in good enough shape. And if they could rely on that defense that only allowed 8 points then in the second half, the Giants are a team that's not going to really be at the bottom of the league. They may be middle of the pack. Obviously, still a lot of season left, but some definitely confident signs coming from the Giants after yesterday's win in Cleveland. So they win it 21-15. Giants really dominate this game in the first half and slow the game down in the second half. A huge win on the road to move to 1-2 on the season. As we move to another team in New York, let's move to baseball as the New York Yankees coming off a sweep in Oakland as they sweep the Oakland A's in 3 games. A 4-2 win on Friday, 10-0 Saturday, and 7-4 on Sunday. Great pitching from the Yankees, only allowing 6 runs in 3 games, as well as the bullpen really stepping up, but the starters were really the story in these 3 games. Garrett Cole, Nestor Cortez, along with Carlos Rodon, who all shut the door on this Oakland A's offense. And the most runs coming yesterday, a 7-4 win. Actually, it was not Rodon, it was Luis Gil, excuse me. But you look at Luis Gil yesterday, struggled a bit early, and Oakland was able to put up a couple of runs. Obviously, then they put up 4 runs, but the Yankee offense just could not be stopped. Dominguez with a 2-run homer. Judge gets his 55th of the season, as well as Gleyber Torres also hitting a home run for the Yankees. So, I mean, the Bombers are out. The Bronx Bombers are showing up right now on offense, and in the last week or so, a lot of confidence coming in for the Yankees. Obviously, with Baltimore now dropping a lot of series and really struggling to find wins. Obviously, some drop series to the San Francisco Giants as well as the Detroit Tigers. I think if you're looking at it from a Yankees point of view, you're very excited for what the postseason may hold as long as everybody stays healthy. Of course, a scare for Juan Soto a couple of series ago in Seattle, but I mean the Yankees look really, really strong right now. If they go into this series against Baltimore and win on Tuesday, they will clinch the AL East, and that's the Yankees' big goal for the regular season: clinch the division. Maybe even clinch the 1 seed as well if they keep racking up those wins, with Cleveland right behind them in that race. I look at the Yankees right now, and going into this next series, you got to have a lot of confidence if you are Yankee fans. And Baltimore not playing their best baseball right now. Yankees go into this series tomorrow. A 7:05 start tomorrow on Tuesday, a 3-game set against Baltimore. And like I said, if they just get one win, and maybe it comes tomorrow, they will be AL East champions. Clark Schmidt's going to be on the mound against Dean Kramer. So looking at it for the Yankees, they are very close, to clinching that division. And I mean, if they keep playing baseball like this, it could be a strong postseason as well. And of course, the ultimate goal for a World Series or bust for the Yankees this year. A very strong end right now to the regular season. And if you're a Yankee fan, you hope they keep it going. But a series start here in the Bronx as they take on the Orioles, finish off with the Pirates, and we'll recap all of that in our next couple episodes. The Yankees taking on the Orioles in a 3-game set in the Bronx. And also on the other side of New York, it's the New York Mets who are red hot right now, feeling really good in the NL East and in the NL wild card race as the Atlanta Braves continue to chase the New York Mets. Obviously, the Mets coming off a big series win against the Philadelphia Phillies, who still have not clinched the NL East. Still some time left, and if they slip up, I believe the Mets will be right behind them to put pressure on them. But they win 3 out of 4, the Mets do, and I think a lot of it had to do with how great the pitching was in some of those games, of course, as well as the offense. 10-6 in the first one, 12-2 loss for the Mets in the second game of the series, 6-3 win then on Saturday, and a 2-1 victory last night, Sunday Night Baseball, for the New York Mets as Brandon Nimmo hit a huge solo home run to give the Mets the lead, and Edwin Diaz shutting the door against this Phillies team. And right, like I said, the Mets feeling really, really strong right now. That's 2 straight series wins as they swept the Nationals last series. I think the big thing right now is how great the pitching has looked. And you can go down the list of great pitchers who have performed for them. Sean Manaea is a name that comes to mind. Drew Peterson. You look at other ones like Quintana as well, really stepping up for the Mets right now. And if you look at these next stretches of games, Atlanta and Milwaukee, Severino is another pitcher in mind. I think if you look at those next 2 series, Atlanta as well as Milwaukee, you got to say that if the pitching is right, it's going to be hard for both of those teams, Atlanta and Milwaukee, to get by this Mets team because the offense is feeling good and it doesn't look like they're stopping anytime soon. Every game they're putting up runs, really 2 or more in almost all of their games in the last stretch. In the last couple of series, they've always been putting up runs. So definitely a lot of confidence for this Mets offense, and they're feeling good even without Francisco Lindor in the lineup. I think if you're a Met fan, you got to be very happy with how the last couple of weeks have gone. And they look to continue to keep the train rolling, as now they go to Atlanta. Big series, crucial series, and it's one of those series that really defines a season. But the Mets have great pitching in these three matchups. The probable Severino, Peterson, and Manaea against Atlanta, and it's going to be hard for the Braves, who in the recent couple of series have dropped a game when the Mets have lost. So really have not helped themselves. Of course, the Mets racking up wins and picking up win after win. 6 of their last 7, the Mets have won. And every time that the Mets win one, it's either the Braves drop one or maybe when the Mets drop one as well, the Braves cannot answer and drop the same day. So it's been a hard couple of weeks for Atlanta, kind of chasing their NL East rival. I think when you look at this series, it's going to decide who really deserves to be in the playoffs. Braves get a bit of a home field advantage, playing in front of their home crowd for this 3-game series. But I mean, can anybody stop the Mets right now? Atlanta's looking to do it and get back in this NL wild card race. 2 games back they sit of the New York Mets. But if you're the Mets right now, you got to feel very happy about how the pitching has gone, like I mentioned, as well as the hitting and being able to consistently put up runs in each and every game. So we'll look in a couple of days how this series starts and how Severino pitches on Tuesday night. A 7:20 start for the Mets in Atlanta. Crucial series. You won't want to miss it, as the New York Mets looking for that crucial spot in the NL wild card. And finally, let's finish things off today with Monday Night Football, and a nice Monday Night Football preview for you, as we have 2 games tonight. A surprise from the NFL, 2 Monday night games, and a 7:30 one. We'll start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 0-2, taking on the Buffalo Bills at 2-0. This one taking place up in Buffalo. Bills come in as 5.5-point favorites, total sitting at 45.5. I look at this one and say, all right, well, how are the Bills going to win this one? Because it's very hard to stop this Bills team right now, especially with that home crowd behind them, coming off 2 great wins. Their first one in week 1 against Arizona. It didn't look great the entire game, but they found a way to find a victory with a 34-28 win on their home field. And then last week, in week 2, absolutely dominating the Miami Dolphins. And yes, the story of the game in that one was the concussion for Tua Tagovailoa. But even before Tua went out, the Bills really dominated the Dolphins from start to finish, and everywhere on offense as well as defense. Josh Allen looked very comfortable in that one and was able to find his receivers. Khalil Shakir was the big one that day. But it kind of shows that, well, although everyone said, hey, all right, the Bills are going to struggle without Stephon Diggs as well as Gabe Davis. They don't have too much to replace those guys. Even Dalton Kincaid hasn't had a big start to the season, and maybe that's due to the tight end conundrum that's going on in the NFL right now. It looks like Dalton Kincaid may not even be the top option, that they can rely on guys like Khalil Shakir, maybe another guy in Keon Coleman. They also have Curtis Samuel, who gives them a different option. James Cook has looked very, very strong so far this season. And even with a banged up defense, the Buffalo Bills looked very, very strong against the Miami Dolphins, gave that speed-filled offense no room to move. So if you look at this one heading into it, the Jaguars coming in at 0-2, a very tough loss for them against the Cleveland Browns last week, 18-13 at home, and Trevor Lawrence really couldn't get anything going for that offense in that one in week 2. Of course, the loss in week 1, a hurtful one as well. Travis Etienne fumbles, and Miami ends up coming back down double digits in Miami to beat Jacksonville in week 1. So hasn't been the start for this start of the season that Jacksonville would have wanted. And the Jaguars sitting at 0-2. Doug Peterson trying to find ways to get this offense going and find answers. It's not going to be easy now going on the road. They're up in Buffalo, and the Bills with this home crowd under the lights, I just can't see a way where they lose this game. 5.5-point favorites. I do think the Jaguars keep this one a bit close, so may not be a cover from the Bills. However, I cannot see a world where the Bills do not win this game. Josh Allen's going to have a big one in this one. Like I said, in front of this home crowd, it really fires up this Bills offense as well as their defense, and it should be a good one for Buffalo. Like I said, 5.5-point favorites. I'm picking the Bills to win against Jacksonville, who would fall to 0-3, and a lot of question marks would have to be answered down there in the AFC South. The other game going on Monday Night Football is the Washington Commanders heading on the road to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Washington come in at 1-1. Big win last week against the New York Giants. And the Bengals sitting at 0-2. And I mean, the rough starts to the season continue for the Cincinnati team. Obviously, years past, this is nothing new for Cincinnati, as September just has never been their month. And now they sit at 0-2. Yes, 2 tough games that they had to play. New England should have won that one at home as a big favorite on their home field. However, injuries, still trying to get guys healthy and figure things out. I think the Bengals now at 0-2 realize, all right, this loss last week to Kansas City was a very hurtful one. They thought they really had it, and all of a sudden Kansas City comes up with an answer, and the game-winning field goal from Harrison Butker as time expired. If you're the Bengals, I mean, I feel like, yes, there's pressure on you, but just go out and play here. You're going up against a Washington team that, yes, they won last week, and a lot of people would question how they won last week. 7 field goals. They're the only team, I believe it's the Giants, who are the only team to not allow a touchdown, put up 3 touchdowns on their own, and still lose the game. Just a tough time there as a Giants fan watching that one. But, I mean, the Commanders found the win. I don't think they're going to find a win here. I feel like the Bengals have, yes, a lot of pressure on them, but I think Jamar Chase will take advantage of this secondary, this very weak secondary that the Commanders have. Of course, Malik Neighbors went to town on them last week. Week before, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans also went to town on this secondary. That's the biggest weakness of this Washington team right now. And I think if you're the Bengals, you got to go right after him, get your star man, Jamar Chase, open and in space. And I'm expecting a huge night from him, a huge night from Joe Burrow. The Bengals, I feel like, just get back in the win column. An easy one here. I'll take the points with the Bengals, -7. A bit of a middle of the pack total, 46.5. I think a lot of those is going to come from the Bengals, who really have a statement to make here on their home field, taking on this Commanders defense. I look at Joe Burrow, like I said, and Jamar Chase to step up in this one. They really need a win, and they'll have their home crowd behind them. A huge one tonight, 8:15, the doubleheader for Monday Night Football. Bengals and Commanders. I'm taking the Bengals to win this one. But that'll do it for the first ever episode of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamuth. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on Wednesday.